English history is full of kings who built empires, won wars, and shaped the future of the monarchy. But not every ruler was remembered with honor. Some were feared, hated, mocked, or even overthrown. Some were accused of murder. Some were religious extremists. Others destroyed their own kingdoms through greed, paranoia, or sheer incompetence. In this video, we're counting down the 10 most controversial kings in English history, rulers who caused outrage in their own time and continue to divide historians today. Some of these kings were villains, some were misunderstood, and some were both. Let's begin. 10 King John reigned 1199 to 1216. King John is one of the most infamous monarchs in English history, and his name has become almost synonymous with failure. He lost huge portions of English territory in France, including Normandy, which shattered England's influence across Europe. His reign was marked by constant conflict with powerful nobles, and his heavy taxation made him deeply unpopular. But what truly made John controversial was his ruthless leadership style. He was accused of betrayal, corruption, and cruelty. Many believed he was responsible for the disappearance and likely murder of his nephew, Arthur of Brittany, who had a strong claim to the throne. John's reign reached its breaking point when rebel barons forced him to sign one of the most important documents in world history, the Magna Carta in 1215. It was meant to limit royal power and protect noble rights. John signed it, but quickly tried to undo it, plunging England into civil war. To some, King John was a tyrant who nearly destroyed the monarchy. To others, he was a capable administrator trapped in an impossible situation. But either way, his reputation remains toxic even today. 9 King Richard II reigned 1377 to 1399. Richard II became king at just 10 years old, and early in his reign he faced one of England's most dramatic uprisings, the Peasants' Revolt of 1381. At first, Richard impressed many by meeting the rebels face to face and calming the crisis. But as he grew older, Richard became increasingly authoritarian. He surrounded himself with favorites, punished nobles who opposed him, and demanded absolute loyalty. His enemies accused him of ruling like a dictator. Richard's controversial behavior reached a peak when he exiled and seized the lands of Henry Bolingbroke, a powerful noble. That decision backfired catastrophically. Bolingbroke returned to England, gathered support, and overthrew Richard in 1399. Richard was imprisoned and soon died under mysterious circumstances. Many believe he was murdered. Richard II remains controversial because historians still debate whether he was a visionary king who believed in strong monarchy, or a dangerously arrogant ruler who provoked his own downfall. Either way, his reign ended in one of the most shocking moments in English royal history: a crowned king removed by force. 8 King Edward II reigned 1307 to 1327. Edward II is remembered not for greatness, but for scandal, humiliation, and political disaster. From the start, Edward's reign was controversial because of his close relationship with a nobleman named Piers Gaveston. Many barons despised Gaveston, believing he controlled the king and abused royal power. Some historians believe Edward and Gaveston were lovers, though the truth remains uncertain. Regardless, the favoritism Edward showed created political chaos. After Gaveston was killed by rebellious nobles, Edward simply replaced him with new favorites, including the powerful Despencer family. This only deepened resentment. Edward also suffered one of England's most humiliating military defeats at the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, where Scotland's Robert the Bruce crushed the English army. Eventually, Edward's own wife, Queen Isabella, turned against him. She formed an alliance with Roger Mortimer, invaded England, and forced Edward to abdicate. Edward was imprisoned and later died in captivity. 7 King James II reigned 1685 to 1688. James II is controversial because he was the last Catholic king of England, and his reign nearly tore the country apart. When James became king, England was deeply Protestant. Many feared that Catholic rule would lead to religious persecution and foreign influence, especially from France and the Pope. James didn't ease those fears, he intensified them. He openly promoted Catholics into positions of power, ignored Parliament, and attempted to suspend laws that restricted Catholic rights. He believed strongly in the divine right of kings, meaning he claimed his authority came directly from God, not from the people or Parliament. His opponents believed he was trying to establish an absolute monarchy like the kings of France. The breaking point came when James had a son in 1688, creating the possibility of a Catholic dynasty. England's political elite panicked. They invited James's Protestant daughter, Mary, and her husband William of Orange to invade. James fled the country, and Parliament declared that he had abandoned the throne. This event became known as the Glorious Revolution, and it permanently changed England's monarchy by limiting royal power. James II is controversial because some see him as a stubborn tyrant who threatened England's freedom, while others argue he was unfairly overthrown simply for his religion. But his reign proved one thing. By the late 1600s, England would no longer tolerate kings who ruled without consent. 6. King Charles I, reigned 1625 to 1649. Charles I is one of the most controversial kings in English history because he is the only English monarch to be executed after a public trial. Charles believed strongly in royal authority. He argued that kings were chosen by God and should not be challenged by Parliament. But Parliament refused to accept that. Charles repeatedly demanded money for wars, and Parliament demanded reforms in return. When Parliament resisted, Charles dissolved it more than once. Then he took a shocking step. In 1629, Charles ruled for 11 years without calling Parliament at all. This period is known as the personal rule, and many saw it as dictatorship. Religious tensions also exploded. Charles supported high church Anglican reforms that many Protestants believed were too close to Catholicism. When Charles attempted to force religious changes on Scotland, rebellion followed. He was forced to call Parliament again to raise money, but by then the political situation was beyond repair. Eventually, England descended into the English Civil War, splitting the nation between royalists and parliamentarians. Charles lost in 1649. He was put on trial for treason, something unimaginable at the time. He refused to recognize the court, insisting no one had the right to judge a king. But the court judged him anyway. Charles was executed outside the banqueting house in London, and England briefly became a republic under Oliver Cromwell. Charles I remains controversial because some view him as a martyr who died defending monarchy and tradition. Others see him as an arrogant ruler whose refusal to compromise caused mass bloodshed. Either way, his reign ended in one of the most dramatic moments in European history. Henry VIII is one of the most famous kings in English history and also one of the most controversial. At first, Henry was admired. He was athletic, intelligent, and charismatic. But his reign became defined by obsession, violence, and religious revolution. Henry's greatest controversy began with his desperate need for a male heir. When his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, failed to produce a surviving son, Henry demanded an annulment. The Pope refused. Henry responded by doing something that transformed England forever. He broke away from the Catholic Church and declared himself the head of the Church of England. This wasn't just a religious decision, it was political warfare. Henry shut down monasteries, seized church lands, and executed those who resisted. His former close friend Thomas More was executed for refusing to recognize Henry's authority over the church. Henry's personal life became equally infamous. He married 6 times, divorcing, executing, or outliving his wives. 2 queens, Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard, were beheaded. Some see Henry as a bold ruler who strengthened England and modernized the monarchy. Others see him as a paranoid tyrant who destroyed lives, shattered religious unity, and ruled through fear. By the end of his reign, Henry was feared more than respected, and England was left divided and unstable. Now we enter the final stretch of the list, 3 kings whose reigns sparked hatred, bloodshed, and suspicion so deep that their names still cause arguments today. Because the next kings weren't just controversial, They were accused of betrayal, madness, and murder. George III is controversial not because he was cruel or corrupt, but because he became the face of one of England's greatest losses. During his reign, Britain lost its American colonies after the American Revolution. To many Americans, George III became the symbol of tyranny. The Declaration of Independence accused him of oppression and abuse of power. But the truth is more complicated. George III was not a dictator in the modern sense. Parliament held much of the power, and many political decisions were shaped by ministers. Still, George supported strong British authority over the colonies, and he refused to compromise when rebellion began. Another major source of controversy was his mental health. In later years, George suffered from episodes of severe illness, which may have involved confusion, paranoia, and inability to rule. His condition led to the creation of a regency, with his son ruling in his place. Some historians believe George III suffered from porphyria. Others suggest a psychological illness. George III remains controversial because he is remembered in two completely different ways. To some, he was a stable and moral king who represented duty and tradition. To others, he was the king who lost America and collapsed into madness. 3. King Richard III, reigned 1483 to 1485. Richard III may be the most debated king in English history. His reign lasted only 2 years, but his reputation has lasted more than 5 centuries. Richard became king after the death of his brother Edward IV. Edward's sons, Edward V and his younger brother, were placed in the Tower of London. They were never seen again. They became known as the Princes in the Tower, and their disappearance remains one of the greatest mysteries in English history. Many believe Richard ordered their murder to secure the throne. Others argue there is no proof, and that later Tudor rulers blamed Richard to justify their own power. Richard's image was permanently damaged by propaganda, especially Shakespeare's famous portrayal of him as a deformed, evil tyrant. But modern historians have questioned whether Richard was truly as monstrous as history claims. In 1485, Richard was killed at the Battle of Bosworth Field by Henry Tudor, ending the Wars of the Roses. His body was thrown into an unmarked grave, and his dynasty collapsed. Richard III remains controversial because he might have been a murderer, or one of history's greatest victims of political character assassination. 2. King William II Rufus, reigned 1087 to 1100. William II, known as William Rufus, is controversial because of the mysterious and suspicious way he died and the reputation he built before it. Rufus was known as harsh, aggressive, and deeply unpopular with the church. He taxed heavily, seized lands, and treated religious leaders with open contempt. He also gained a reputation for cruelty and greed, and many chroniclers described him as immoral. But the biggest controversy came in 1100, when Rufus was killed while hunting in the New Forest. An arrow struck him, and he died almost instantly. The official story claimed it was an accident, but the circumstances were suspicious. The man who fired the arrow, Walter Tyrrell, fled immediately, and Rufus's brother, Henry, wasted no time. He rushed to seize the royal treasury and had himself crowned king almost immediately. Many believe William Rufus was assassinated, possibly as part of a conspiracy to place Henry on the throne. Whether he was murdered or not remains unknown, but his sudden death and Henry's rapid takeover have kept historians suspicious for centuries. William II remains controversial because his reign was marked by ruthless power and his death felt too convenient to be accidental. The most controversial king in English history is Stephen, not because he was the most evil, but because his reign created one of the darkest collapses England ever experienced. Stephen seized the throne after the death of Henry I, despite Henry's chosen heir being his daughter, Empress Matilda. Stephen's claim was weak, but he acted quickly, gained support, and crowned himself king. That decision triggered a brutal civil war known as the Anarchy. England descended into chaos. Nobles built private armies, castles rose everywhere, law and order collapsed, and ordinary people suffered horribly. Chroniclers described the time as a nightmare where justice disappeared and violence ruled. Stephen was not a strong enough ruler to control the kingdom, but he also refused to step aside. The war dragged on for nearly 20 years. Stephen's reign remains controversial because he is blamed for allowing England to collapse into feudal warfare, where the monarchy became powerless and the country nearly broke apart. Eventually, Stephen agreed to a compromise. He would remain king, but Matilda's son Henry would become his heir. That son later became Henry II, one of England's greatest kings. But Stephen's reign left a scar. His weakness didn't just create conflict. It created a generation of suffering. So those were the 10 most controversial kings in English history, rulers remembered not just for their power, but for the chaos they left behind. Some were tyrants, some were tragic. Some may have been innocent, and some may have been far worse than history even dares to confirm. English monarchy survived them all, but it was never the same afterward. And the biggest question is this: were these kings truly monsters, or were they simply men given too much power?